So just yesterday, right, 45 Democrat senators voted no on protecting women's sports. How do you feel about that, and why do you think they do so?
It's absolutely disturbing. They made it so clear that they are the anti-woman party to say that they don't want to protect women's sports. I mean, that's what this bill was. We saw it Senate Bill 9. It was so clear, just to protect women's sports, to keep males out of female sports. And the fact that they made it a party line issue is, again, disgusting. We see across the United States in this past election, people are not okay with male and female sports. It's a common sense issue. It's genuinely one of the issues that Democrats and Republicans have been able to unite on. Yet the elected officials don't want to unite on it. They don't want to represent their constituents well. And so the fact that we had male and female Democrats voting no on this, so the females are working to erase themselves. Mm-hmm. And the males, come on, men, stand up to protect women. And so it's beyond disturbing, and it makes it clear that there's one party of evil and one party that's doing somewhat good things.
But this wasn't an issue, let's say, 10 years ago, right?
No, we saw actually in California in the state legislation, AB 1266, that was one of the main bills we saw introduced in 2013, which started to allow you to play on sports teams, use locker rooms and restrooms based off of gender identity and not biological sex.
And that was passed.
Yes, so that was passed in the state of California in 2013, so it went into effect on January 1st of 2014. So we've seen the elected officials, they have been pushing this ideology quietly and slowly for over 10 years now, but it didn't become an issue in the public until about 3 or 4 years ago.
And who pushed this in California in 2013?
We had Governor Jerry Brown. He was the governor that signed this. It was the Democrat Party that pushed it. The Republican Party did vote against this ideology back in 2013. And then we eventually saw through the Democrat Party in the state of California pushing the sex ed in the schools, which began to teach this transgender ideology. That is why we now see the issue happening. They put laws into place that would allow for boys to be in girls' sports and locker rooms and bathrooms. Then they put laws into place to teach the students about transgender ideology. That's why we now see it happening.
What's the next step?
What was the next step?
Yeah, what's the next step? First, they do it with the legislation. Then they do the propaganda in schools. Mm-hmm. What's next?
Yeah, they're going after language now. So this goes back to them not being able to tell you and define what a woman is. We're seeing at the state capitol even language being completely erased. Every time a piece of legislation in California states male or female, they are crossing that out and they're putting they, them, or they're putting persons. So we're now seeing they were able to pass legislation to allow this, passed legislation to indoctrinate the children on this. Mm-hmm. Now they're passing legislation to completely erase common sense. I mean, the fact that they want to say that women are chest feeders, not even breastfeeders, chest feeders, that they're menstruators, that they're birth givers. I mean, menstruators instead of just a woman.
It's so insulting.
It is completely insulting, the things that women go through, and then just to be defined by those things because they're saying that anyone can menstruate, anyone can give birth. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, I did testify at the state capitol last year, and I had to say that it is not biased to believe that only women give birth, to which they looked at me like I was crazy. And the legislators, the Democrat legislators on that committee, said that it's false to say that. They said that actually anyone can give birth, that people of the non-binary and trans community can give birth. No, if you can give birth, you're a woman.
How is it possible? So they were saying since 2020, they were saying trust the science, correct? So the science told us prior to 2021, 2022, that only women can give birth. They can menstruate. Mm-hmm. And they're saying now that I can menstruate, I can give a birth to a child. Did they ever see a male that gave birth?
Yeah, that hasn't happened. It never will happen. It doesn't matter if you want to identify as a man, but if you can give birth, you are a woman. And so they, like you said, they used to pull the line, follow the science. They're not following the science. They're following their idol of trans ideology, and they're willing to say anything and everything, no matter how delusional or incompetent they sound, to push this ideology.
So the next step is language. What's the next step? Pedophiles? Calling them MAPs? Legalizing MAPs?
Most likely. I mean, we're seeing it's every time we hit one of these steps, it's what could they even do next?
Yes.
And somehow they think of new ideas and they push these new ideas. I mean, we saw Senator Scott Wiener a couple years ago push a piece of legislation basically saying that if you are above the age of 14 and you are, say you're 23 and you sleep with a 14-year-old, that used to be not okay. That used to be illegal. And he pushed this legislation that was saying it's anti-LGBTQ to state that. And thus, if you are within a 10-year age range, so if it is a 14-year-old and a 23-year-old sleeping together, you're not automatically going to be put on the registered sex offender list. That's up to the courts, up to the family, up to the people in that situation. So they're already pushing and going as far extreme as they can. But at the end of the day, that's what's woken up the mama bears and the papa bears and the public, because they've gone so far. The public's putting an end to this and trying to push back against it now.
Scott Wiener is a gay himself?
Yes.
So what do gays have in common with pedophiles? Because if you're 23 and you sleep with a 14-year-old, you're a pedophile.
Yes.
You're not gay, you're not lesbian, you're not bi or something else. You're just a pedophile.
It has nothing to do, like you said, it has nothing to do whether you're straight, gay, bi, lesbian, all the different things. If you are a 23-year-old that wants to sleep with a 14-year-old, that is pedophilia.
So what do you think is their end goal?
Their end goal is obviously to completely erase what sex is. They don't want there to just be two sexes. They just want anyone to be able to live the things they feel and the things they think. It's erasing science. And it's also they're trying to get rid of the nuclear family. That's why they're going after womanhood. They see how powerful it is when there is a mom and a dad married and having children. They see how powerful a mom is in the household, raising her children, taking care of the family. And so they're trying to erase what the nuclear family is. As a Christian myself, it's not a shock that they're doing that, because we see how great families are and how wonderful it is when there's a mom and dad raising children together. And so they want to completely get rid of that to just continue. Again, they're bowing down and worshiping their idol of trans ideology.
Do you think that's the reason?
I believe so. I think it's also, again, as a Christian, I can see the difference that this is a spiritual attack. And so I can see that we have in the Bible, God created family, God created male and female, God created all of these things. And so I think this is a demonic attack attacking truth.
So basically they are in some kind of a cult. They have some kind of an idol. They bow to him and they do whatever she says.
Yep. I believe they're bowing down to the idol of trans ideology. And that's why they're willing to make the ridiculous comments that anyone can get pregnant. Because if you're not trying to push a certain ideology, why would you go as far to lie and make those comments? And that's what they're doing. They're trying to push this ideology, and it's an idol at the end of the day.
Why that wasn't a thing? Why wasn't that an issue in, let's say, 1990s with Clinton or early 2000s? Why 2013? What has happened?
Yeah, so it's just their slow progression to get what they want to. So I mean,
would you call it slow? I mean, in the last 5 years,
yes,
you went bananas.
Yeah, it has felt extremely fast what we're seeing happen in the public, but they've slowly done it. I mean, again, what they started pushing with this trans ideology was back in 2013. But if we start going further and further back, they first started with gay marriage. And so we saw them pushing, saying, oh, we just want to have our privacy in our bedrooms. Just let us do what we want in our bedrooms, and pushing this ideology that everyone deserves all these specific rights. And so we're seeing these happen, and it's a slow progression of what started out for the arguments of the LGBT community is now the same arguments being pushed for the for the trans community. Mm-hmm. And so it seems that they're never happy with what they get. And it's also interesting because a lot of the people in the LGBT community are very upset with the T community, are very upset with trans. They don't agree with it.
They got nothing in common.
They got nothing in common. They don't agree with it. They don't want it. The women who identify as lesbian, they don't want the trans men, the men who think they're women in women's restrooms. But this isn't necessarily what individuals have been pushing. This was the plan all along of these elected officials. And so they used their whole game plan of the LGB to eventually get them to the T.